Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Justin from Justin and Max Games, and I'm going to be doing a review and also a little bit of a new series of fantastic, wonderful games that just went under the radar or got bad reviews, and I think they're just absolutely fantastic games. The first in this series is the game Praetor. This is a city building game in the Roman era, and I think the issue with this game is that maybe after the first couple of plays, people don't get the subtleties of the game, and also there were a couple of rules problems in the original rule book, which I think definitely damaged its reputation, and subsequently the game designer came out with an official errata with corrections to the rules based upon further gameplay, and I actually have a couple of my own that I think, after we've played it many times over the last year, improve the game even a little bit more and make it even a little bit more thematic. So in this game, you begin with a very basic small city, and everyone's going to be contributing to the building of this city, and also they have the option of personally building the Hadrian's Wall that they're going to place in their personal space. One of the really interesting aspects of this game is that your workers, this is a dice placement game, when you place one of your workers in a location, you get what its value is. So in this case, this is a value 1 die, but if you place it in a location that you gain some material or some points, that experience level goes up to a 2, so that the next time the person is going to use the die, they now have a more experienced player. You have to pay each person at the end of every round, meaning all of your workers, and you can recruit new workers that can get older and more experienced, and then they join the group, but then you have to pay them. And if one of your workers becomes too experienced, they retire. So you're kind of balancing the game all throughout, and when a person decides to build a building, they get different resources. You're gaining different resources throughout the game, going various places. You can trade for the resources, or you can go to a location and buy the resources. For example, in this location, you're going to be buying marble based on the number of your guy. The issue is that if I built that building, I get to put one of my discs on there, and if anyone else decides to use the building, they have to pay me $1. And different buildings have different values for these things. Once you have enough material, you can trade. You can go to the trade location, and I definitely say go to the Board Game Geek and download the official errata, and also take notice of my particular errata in the game. But it's a really interesting balance between getting your guys older or more experienced to gain more things, but then if you push them over the brink, you'll get points for it, but then you're going to make sure you're going to have to recruit youngsters to take their place, and you're going to still have to pay for the older generation. So you can decide, well, I'm going to go to this place, and that's another really interesting aspect of the game, is that when you go to a location, you are the only one during that round that's allowed to go to that location. So if there's a wall piece out, there's a little bit of a race. Ooh, that person has close to what it's going to take to build that part of the wall. I have some things, and I don't know if I do my things quicker than the other person. And when you build a little piece of the wall, after you get the points for it, you flip the tile, and the next piece of the wall that you build, you get more points. So you can try to be building wall tiles around your area. Or you could be trying to build buildings so that, one, as you're building them, if people want to use them, they'll have to give you something, so it makes it a little bit better for you. But also you get points for building these various buildings. And one really cool part of the game, and again, I've heard some criticism about it, but I think it's really neat, is that there's these little, they're called plazas, these little corners that are different colors. And yes, the colors can be a little bit similar, but when you place it on the board, if you can get matching corners depending on where you put it, you will get extra points. And some of these buildings aren't really that expensive, so you might get a building that'll give you 1 or 2 points, but if you could find the right location, it could be 6, 7 points. You can up the value there. And that's a really neat aspect of this game too. Knowing how long you want your workers to be out there, when you're going to retire them. If you retire them early, you'll get more points, but if you retire them later, you'll have an ability to use them more extensively. There are some safe locations. If you put a worker down on a green circle, or a space that has a green circle, they don't gain experience. They gain experience only when they're getting something. Like in this case, they're getting money, so they'll gain experience. Or if you use one of your workers to build a building, they will gain it. And, I thought at first the replay value of this game was going to be limited because there's only so many different buildings. They give you a sheet of which buildings are available in the game, and you don't know when they're going to come up. And even though I thought that was going to limit its replayability, since there's only about 20 or so different buildings, it's when they come up, what makes them available. Because if, let's say, this marble building comes up early, well, someone can try to build that quickly, and then marble's available for everyone. If not, then you have to trade for it, and that can take more time to be able to do those trades. Money is very tight in the game. You think, oh, I'll go to the trade, I'll trade away a lot of my goods, I won't worry about building buildings, I'll get a lot of money, and then for a couple of turns I'll be able to pay my people so that they don't go out on me. The money goes very quickly, and if you lose money, you lose morale, and if you lose morale, you lose points. And the more people you play this game up to 5, the building stacks get bigger and bigger, so that every turn these new buildings start coming out and these new wall tiles coming out, and you're thinking, oh, should I go for the wall tile? Should I go for the building? Should I just get some money? At the end of the game, the money is not really worth that much, but at the end of the game, I'll just give you an example of what maybe a city at the end looks like. So here's an example of an ending city in a 2-player game. If there's 3 players, 3 or more players, then you could also get some extra points for the biggest area that you control, the biggest area of buildings that you've controlled. You could also get points for the least amount of people that you used. You can get points also for the biggest wall that someone built, because these walls, that's a timer in the game. When the walls run out, the game can end, or when these buildings no longer can come out, that's also a timer in the game. It's a really wonderful game. And the designer really thought about something very, very carefully, and that is the types of materials. For example, wood can only be gotten from either the one wood space that's going to come out in the game, or you have to trade for it, but it's the least valuable item. Then the next one up is the stone, which is gray, which also can come out in a place that you can put out your guy, and maybe if he has a 5, now you'll get 5 of these stone, and then he's going to retire, because once they become 6, they're out. Or you could trade for it. Then the next highest one is the white, is the marble, and that's big time used in buildings, especially some of the more expensive buildings. But white, again, has a place that you can either dig it out of the ground or buy it, or you could trade for it as well, because again, only one person can go to each spot during each round, and so you have to really choose where you're going to go. The most expensive item, though, black, which is, I think it's called weapons in the game, there's no space that you can get it. You could either trade for it, or you have to upgrade your lowest valued item, and I think that's really neat. You might think, oh, I'm not going to get too much red, because the wood, because it's not really that valuable, but red is the only way to get it to black by doing an action where there is one where it goes from the least valuable to the most valuable. The values in the game, the numbers of points seems to be right, and we played this many times. We played it in a lot of times just 2 players, but also with 3 and 4. And I really find this game to be a diamond in the rough. I think there are a couple of problems with the game that were fixed with the errata, and I have one other fix for it. And I think if people really gave it a shot, once you play it 2 or 3 times and you start to see which buildings are coming out when, who owns them, how much money do I have, where am I on the track, really, really fascinating game. I do have a criticism, though. I'm not crazy about the... Oh, there's one yellow going away. The scoring board, it's one of these tracks where it goes backwards and forwards and kind of snakes around, and sometimes it's hard to remember where you are, and you might even miss score sometimes. Scores usually go over 100, though, in the game. There's a lot of points to be had if you can just kind of eke them out. The one thing that I changed big time in the game is how the labor camp is used. The labor camp was, a lot of people originally when they reviewed it said this was a broken issue in the game, and as a result, the designer came up with sort of an alternative with the labor camp, but we were never really satisfied with that one either. What we do with the labor camp is that, the labor camp, its point is that when you have retired workers and they can't do anything for you anymore, you can hire back one of these retired workers with a very high number, and thus be able to use them at 6, so you can get 6 black or 6 white or 6 money or whatever. But whoever owned this building, it seemed that they were able to kind of control the flow of the game after that. The designer came up with some alternative rules to how this works, but our rule is this, and I guarantee you this improves the game tremendously. One, just keep it out. Don't attach it. When it comes out, it's not really one of the buildings that anyone builds. You just leave it aside. It's not attached to anything. Nothing can attach to this. You can pay $3 to the bank to use the space to bring out one of your retired workers. But when you do, you also have to give it one of your desks, meaning that's one less building you can eventually build. So you're spending $3 and a disk. You put a disk on there. You can only do this once per round. And then you put your 6 worker wherever you want to use them. And then when they're done, they don't go back. You don't get them again. It's a labor camp. You've worked these guys to death. They actually stay there. They die. They can't be used again. You don't have to pay for them. But at the same time, you lose their ability of coming out in the labor camp. So if you have a few retired, and to be honest, the labor camp isn't something that you would use that often anyway. It seems almost like, I'm really kind of desperate. I haven't managed my stuff so well, and I got to use a 6 guy, a 6 experienced person. But then, to me, if they die, then you can't use them again, and you save the money on their retirement, but also you got that one last use. And it kind of goes thematically with this Roman sort of, a little bit of the elegance, but also the brutality of that era, and we really like that, and that works wonderfully for us in the game, and I really suggest people using that. The other one are the temple. The temple spaces allow you, and there's two temple tiles. They allow you to donate, or not donate. You just have to show that you have a certain type of series of resources, and when you do, you gain points per pair. But originally in the instructions said it was a sort of unlimited. So you could just hoard stuff and then just keep going to the same place to generate points, which didn't make sense. So the designers put a limit on how much you can show that you have each turn. And of course another player can put their die down and block you if they go first. But we've also changed the rule for temples, again just subtly. Just like almost any of the other places, whichever die you use, so if you use a 4 die and you go to that particular temple to show that you want to gain those points, you just have to show 4 pairs, and then you don't lose the stuff just like the temples work. They just kind of show, and that again is a great fix for the game. It doesn't make building temples and then just going to them with your stuff sort of the strategy that the only strategy in the game. Same thing with the labor camp. Even though the game came out a number of years ago, and it was a game that we only got about a year ago, and we've just absolutely loved it. It's an underrated game by far. Give it some time, give it a little bit of a chance, give it some love, and I think you will very much enjoy Praetor.